In this video, you'll see how I planted my UNS 45U that I have in my office. This tank is rated at about 9.3 gallons or about 35 liters. I've got it filtered by Neheim Classic 150, and I had let it dark start for about 2 weeks prior to this video. There were a bunch of white particles floating around at the top of the tank and in the water. I'm not too sure what these were, but I had intended to drain the tank anyways for the planting. Thankfully, I had my bucket and siphon with me, along with a bunch of cups of plants. In addition to refill, I had about 12 gallons of RO water. I got to work draining the water from the tank, and while I did that, I also used a fine mesh scoop to skim the surface of the water. I tried to be as thorough as I could, and I was pretty satisfied with the amount of those white particles I removed from the water. I really didn't see anything left by the time I was done and refilled the tank. When the water was mostly drained, I took the opportunity to fix the slope of the aqua soil, which had become a little disturbed since I first set in the hardscape. I also repositioned the pesky piece of wood that kept floating and detached itself from the main structure. In the back, I decided to add just a little bit more aqua soil because I wanted to push it down into that open space underneath the main wood structure. To my eye, it was just a little too low directly underneath it and dipped down kind of jarringly so. I also took this opportunity to reattach the piece of wood that had come loose with glue. The first plant I decided to put in was Eleocharis pusilla mini. This is also known as dwarf hairgrass as a common term. And a quick disclaimer, I by no means know the exact pronunciations of each of these plants, so apologies if I kind of butcher them. I'm speeding up the footage here just to get through this. It's still a little repetitive, but basically what I did is I removed the fertilizer liquid from the cup and slowly started separating out small clusters of hairgrass. With each cluster, I grip them towards the base of the plant with my tweezers and press them as far as they would go into the aqua soil. I'll also note now that I did buy 3 cups of dwarf hairgrass, so I decided to plant pretty densely. It's a little evenly spaced right now, which I think is not really recommended just for visuals, but I did have enough to go in and fill in most of the gaps. Also, while I'm planting dwarf hairgrass, I guess it's a good time to mention, if you're curious at all about seeing what happened to my UNS 45C tank that I posted about 3 years ago now, you can head on over to my Instagram page where I had uploaded several progress pictures of the tank. I never did actually get around to recording any more footage for it, unfortunately. My plan at the time was to wait for it to fully grow in and ideally conquer all the algae problems. However, I ended up having to move states with about 2 weeks notice, so I kind of rapidly tore all my tanks down and packed up for that big move. I'm finally at a point where I feel comfortable getting back into the hobby. Still not ideal conditions as far as possibility of moving in the future, but I don't think I will be crossing state lines at least. So anyways, just a quick plug for the Instagram. I've been posting a few picture updates there as well on this tank, and actually the rebirth of the UNS 45C and its new scape at my home. Alright, on to something a little different. Next up is Starogini repens. I love this little plant. It's great as a transition plant, getting back into the taller varieties that you typically see in the mid and backgrounds. With this being kind of a smaller tank, it's kind of serving its purpose in the mid-ground. I'm placing it in front of a couple pieces of the hardscape, hopefully strategically. We'll see as it grows in. My hope is that it will help draw your eyes up towards the background. Also the same strategy here with these plant cups. I had a bucket of drained aquarium water right in front of me, as I didn't have a lot of room to kind of pre-rinse these before planting, so I kind of utilized the old tank water as a means to clear off any fertilizer and fertilizer gels. I also wanted to plant this on this side, as this will be kind of the angle that I view this tank from my desk at. So I wanted to create a little bit of transitional height from this side as well. It's time to add a little splash of color to the tank with Alternanthera Reneki Mini. Kind of dreading saying that one. I think I did okay. This is another plant that grows up a little bit taller and will provide a nice touch of red to the tank. I tried to place this one immediately behind where in the spots that I had planted Starogani repens, because I think that will make a good, again, height transition and also a nice variation in color. Having grown these in the past, I do kind of worry with the space limitations in this tank, that these might be planted a little too closely together. I may need to revisit the plant selection in the background. Up next is the first epiphyte, Bucephalandra diabolica catagang. I figured it was good a time as any with the water drain to attach these to the wood and rock surfaces. For some of these, I was able to get away with just kind of shoving them somewhat gently, relatively gently into the crevices, and in other cases, I did end up having to glue them. With the moss specifically, I had intended to bring some twine so I could tie them to the wood. However, I forgot that, so I ended up resorting to glue there as well. When placing epiphyte plants, this is a great opportunity to hide hard cuts and places where you've secured multiple pieces of hardscape together. They do a really good job of bringing everything together and making things look a lot more cohesive. Up next is another form of Bucephalandra. This is a Pygmaea Bukic Lam, also known as wavy green, which I think is much easier to say. Same deal here, just trying to place this into crevices, nooks and crannies, using glue where necessary. Before we get into the next plant, I just want to make a quick note that I had decided to record all of the plant cups in one go and just splice them in, so you'll notice a distinct lack of epiphyte plants when I present the following plants. Speaking of, up next is Hygrophila pinnatophyta. This is another plant that will grow attached to surfaces and will actually grow immersed, which was my goal here for this one. I placed it along with a weeping moss, which you'll see here shortly, that I did not actually get any footage of securing to the wood for, unfortunately. And rather than showing you each of the stem plants as I planted them, I went all in one go, first being Rotala wallichi. I also used a different variant of Rotala. This is Rotenfolia green. And lastly, I also used Rotala Rotenfolia atra. I've not actually planted any of these from culture cups before, so I found them to be a little difficult to work with. I'm not sure if potentially that was just due to the age of the cups or if it's just my unfamiliarity with it. I did my best to separate them out into little clumps of stems and planted them. I believe I went for H-Raw immediately behind the AR minis. I then transitioned back to greens with Rotenfolia green. And in the back right corner of the tank, I planted the Walichi. And here we are speeding through that third cup of dwarf hairgrass. I decided to plant as densely as I could, as this will be my first tank kind of set up outside of my home environment that will have more than just my set of eyes on them every day. So I wanted to give it as best of a chance as it had of progressing without algae. Obviously there will be some, but I'm just trying to minimize the amount. And with that, all the plants are in. Time to refill. I put down several paper towels to kind of help distribute the flow of the water a little more evenly to hopefully disturb the plants as little as possible. I should also probably get a better system of refilling water. I've seen water pumps to pump the water back into the tank, which I think would be a lot easier than lifting up 6-gallon jugs of water. And we can already see a lot of debris, mainly dwarf hairgrass blades floating around. So after I removed the paper towel and wiped it down, I got back to work skimming the surface of the water. With the surface mostly clear, I turned the filter back on to help agitate any plant material that might have settled in the water itself. This did a good job of stirring things up for me to continue to try and clean up. I also took the time to test that my CO2 system was properly set up. And it looked like the CO2 was diffusing nicely with no leaks in the line. I will definitely need to adjust the bubble counter and tweak it over time to see what works best for this tank. And there it is. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the results. I'm really now just excited to watch as everything grows in. I really enjoy how this hardscape turned out as well. I think it provides some nice, dark, kind of dramatic feeling areas within its structure, including this kind of almost cave-like tube here, which will provide a nice viewing angle. After sitting back and admiring it for a few minutes, the last step was to check the TDS level in the water. This first result came back at about 24 parts per million. So I have this mineralizing powder to add to the tank to help bring up the levels to about 120 parts per million is usually what I aim for, and that is solely based off of kind of going by what Green Aqua uses, honestly. If you somehow have not seen their YouTube channel yet, I highly recommend checking it out for a lot more in-depth knowledge and some really amazing scapes. That was supposed to be a thumbs up, by the way. But that's about it for this video. I'm just adding the final finishing touch. I hope you got some enjoyment out of this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.